All right, you guys can go ahead and grab a seat for me. Well, welcome. My name is Kelsey. I am the new Next Gen pastor. I've been here just over 2 months. Thank you, Heather. That was nice. I appreciate that. Super excited to be here with you guys. You guys have done an incredible job welcoming me into this space with you. And I just have loved becoming a part of the Madison Park family. So thank you guys for joining me. Now, in order to get to know me just a little bit, in case you don't have kids or teenagers, I wanted to tell you a little bit about who I am. So my name's Kelsey. I'm from California. I will tell you that I'm from California as often as humanly possible because it's a part of my identity now, okay? Because I believe Disneyland is in fact better than Disney World, and I need to tell everyone all the time. In California, I have an amazing family. I grew up with parents who love Jesus. They run a retreat center for pastors and missionaries out near Tahoe. It's a rough life, I know. It's terrible out there. And then I have 3 brothers that are all younger than me, but they're substantially taller than me, and I love them to pieces. 2 of them are married. I love my sister-in-laws as well. They're great. But besides that, the more important details about who I am, my favorite color is green, which feels not relevant at all, but I thought I'd share that with you. I also am a sock person. So if you don't know, I'm wearing cool socks right now. I am always wearing cool socks. Even when I don't need to be wearing them, I will be wearing them. Outside of that, I like to run. I love movies. Anybody else a big movie person? Excellent. You guys are doing great today, okay? We're going to just showcase some movies now. But I'm really excited to be here at Madison Park and to grow Next Gen into what it can be. And I want you to love Next Gen as much as I do, so I'm bribing you today. Can I do that? You guys weren't as excited as I was hoping you would be, but that's okay. I have presents just to bribe a couple of you. So here we go. I need someone in the audience who has a baby that is 1 or under. 1 or under? Excellent. You don't have to do anything. You're just going to receive today.
He's not under.
He's not under. We already have lying happening in the service. All right. All right, we're going to come down here, 1 or under. We know you're tired. So here's some Starbucks on us. Enjoy. Way to be a mom. Everybody, can we give her a round of applause for taking care of a little? All right, next. I need someone who has a middle school student. A middle school student? Okay, so here's the deal. When you have a middle school student, you finally get to have a little bit of a life back, right? So go to the movies and don't take them with you, okay? That's the only rule. All right, and finally, do I have any college students in this space? College students? All right, I got a couple of you. We know that, finals are coming, so there's some cup of noodle for you because, what are you going to eat at 3 in the morning when everything else is closed? Here you go. Enjoy some cup of noodles. If you're in college, and I have 2 more later, so, come find me. But I'm super excited about the next generation and what we get to do in the lives of families when we partner together, and it takes an entire church to do that. So thank you guys for being a part of that. Just as a heads up, we have something for our families next Sunday called Jingle Jam, and it's an opportunity if you have kids. Come with your kids. We're going to do 5:30. We're going to do a dinner. Then we're going to have cookie decorating. It's going to be messy, but we'll do the cleanup for you. Then we're going to come in here and we're going to have we got an applause for that. Yes, you're welcome. And then we're going to have a show in here. It's going to be weird and goofy. We're going to play games. I promise it's worth your while. If you don't have kids, come and volunteer. We'd love to have you serve our families in the neighborhood. Make sure you're inviting people. It's a great opportunity to celebrate our families together. Now, right now, we're going to move into a time where we wrap up this series that we've been in called Sticks and Stones. But before we do that, I just want to settle our hearts because we're going to have an honest conversation together today. We're going to have a chance to really look at what it looks like to live in words well. Will you pray with me? God, thank you. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you're doing in this space right now. Thank you for doing what you need to in our homes to grow us into the families and into the systems that we can be. God, right now, will you speak to our hearts and our minds words of love, words of joy, words of goodness, words of promise, and words of blessing into our spaces. God, thank you. Speak clearly to us today. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, we're ending our series today called Sticks and Stones, and it comes from the expression, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I think that phrase is wrong. I think if we actually translated it correctly, it'd be sticks and stones may break your bones, and words will forever scar you, right? The reality is, we've talked about the last couple of weeks how words have power. Words have power to impact our lives. It controls the decisions we make. The words that are spoken to us help us make the decisions in our future. Words that we heard years ago are helping us make decisions right now. There's power in the words we speak, and we use them flippantly so often. They just come off the tongue and it's easy. So we talk about how there is power in words. But we also talked last week about how there's pain in words. There's pain in the words that are spoken against us. There's also pain in the words we speak to people. And the power and the pain in those words control us. And we know this is a reality because we can point back to moments where we've experienced both the power and the pain. For me, one of the first times I recognized the power and the pain of the words was when I was about 10. I was in elementary school. And some of my friends decided they were going to write me letters. They figured out where I lived, and they hand wrote letters and folded them up and stuck them in the mailbox. Not in my house, in my mailbox. No postage, which means they spent time driving to my house. And I was so excited. If you've ever been a kid, you remember like getting that mail. You just hope there's money in that, right? You hope that there's something that's going to give you life. And I remember just sitting in this space being so excited that someone stopped to put words to paper to tell me something. It meant someone was thinking about me. In the first couple letters, I was pretty excited, but as these letters kept coming and coming over the course of the next couple weeks, I began to realize these were never going to be kind letters. That first one I opened up, and it said things like, "Hey, Kelsey, you're fat. You're ugly. We don't even like you. We don't know why you sit with us." And it always ended with some line along the lines of, "We don't know why you're even alive." At 10, the first time I experienced the power and the pain of words, and those words spoken at 10 have continued to impact my life for the next 24 years. I am still thinking about those words. Those words still bubble to the surface when I experience certain moments. Because those words had power and pain attached to them. I make decisions today to try and prove or disprove words spoken over me 24 years ago. And my guess is everyone in this space has words and mailboxes full of words that you're still trying to prove or disprove. Because those words have power, and for a lot of us, those words have pain. And we spend so much time just sitting and stewing in these lies that have been spoken. We've explored throughout the last couple weeks that these words create worlds around us, right? The things that are said about you have created your world. Entire nations have been built on what one leader says. Worlds are being created consistently. If you're a parent, you know this. What you speak over your kid is what your kid slowly starts to become. They reach for whatever you speak into them. These worlds are being created around us. So then, are we just supposed to stop speaking because we're afraid of the power or we're afraid of the pain? Right? We go to that other phrase that we use, if you have nothing nice to say, say nothing at all. So do we just become monks and go on silent retreats and just stop using our words because they're just harmful? I'm going to say this, okay? Some of us maybe need to use less words, okay? That is probably true for some of us, but the reality is there is also good in words. There are positive things that can come out of these words. In fact, I believe that out of these words, we can live promises that are given by God. We can live out what God has spoken over us, and if He speaks them over us, then maybe these words aren't all bad. So how do we interact with them? How do we live in the promise of words, not the pain of words? Well, throughout the Old Testament, we think about the word promise. Now, some of you are thinking promise, like you go to when you're 5 and you're like, we pinky promised, and and then they didn't do it. And so then the words lose value. The idea of promise loses value. Some of you made a promise to stay married to someone and you're no longer married to that person, or the vows that you made and it's been broken. So for some of us, the idea of a promise is messy. But with God, there's no mess. He will come to bring that to fruition. He will bring those words to an existence in our world. God cannot break his promises. God cannot change his promises. Instead, if he speaks it, it will happen. That's the kind of promise in our words that we get to explore today. Not the flippant promises we make to our kids. Yeah, I'll promise I'll get it after this episode. But the true promises that God has to offer us. In the Old Testament, we call these blessings. And a blessing was passed down. This promise was passed down from a father to his eldest son. And for us, again, blessing might be a cup of coffee or the fact that everyone was around the table at Thanksgiving, but it's so much more. It's words that become law, and blessings cannot be retracted, redacted, or changed. They stay put. There's nothing we can do to change them. Once they are spoken, they exist. So when a father spoke a message to his eldest son, they stand and they will come to pass. In fact, if you think about the idea of blessing, it changes a little bit. The definition to the word blessing is a prophetic message spoken over your past, in your present, about your future. Let me just repeat that because that takes a moment, right? A blessing is something that's spoken over your past, regardless of what you walked in with, regardless of where you've been, regardless of what you've done. A blessing is spoken over your past, in your present, about a future that you can't even fathom yet. That's a blessing. That's a promise. That's something that's for you from God the Father. But in order to interact with these blessings, in order to understand these words, we have to do a few things with them. And the first is to receive it. Some of us have become so jaded to what God is saying, we're not even listening to the words he's speaking. And so the first thing we have to do is open our hands and receive the words that he has for you. The words that he has for us as a community and as individuals, we have to receive. In order to look at it, I want to talk about this story about this father named Isaac. Now, Isaac isn't actually where the story starts. The story starts with Abraham, who God said, hey, I'm going to give you a lineage that's crazy, ridiculous, awesome. Okay, like you're going to have more people in your family than the sands on the ground and the stars in the sky. Like, this is my promise. This is my blessing. And again, because God spoke it, it can't be retracted, redacted, or changed. It's going to happen. And Abraham didn't really fully understand it in the moment, but he trusts God, and he has a son named Isaac. Well, in his lifetime, we don't see this promise come to full view. Instead, it gets passed down to Isaac. Well, now Isaac holds that promise that Abraham was given because, again, God is going to fulfill his promises. And so Isaac has this promise, but Isaac is getting a little older, and he can't see as well, and so he knows it's time to pass his blessing on to his son, Esau. He has 2 sons, and the oldest one is Esau, and so he pulls Esau into the room and he says, listen, it's time. I'm going to give you this blessing, but what I would love for you to do is go out and hunt and kill and make me my favorite food and bring it back, feed me, and then I will give you this blessing. So Esau leaves, super excited. He knew this was coming at some point in his lifetime, and it's now here. He's going to receive the blessing. Words that are spoken that will come to pass. He knows the value of these words. He knows the power of this promise. And so he goes out to do this. The problem is, I don't know if you guys know this, but families are messy and tricky. If you didn't know this, we would like to learn from your experiences, okay? But families are a little tricky, and so Isaac's wife, Rebecca, has a favorite, okay? Parents, I know none of you have favorites. Parents, just so you know, we all know you have favorites. If you don't know that we know, we'll tell you later, okay? We know you have favorites. And so she has a favorite, and it's not Esau, it's Jacob. Jacob is her favorite. And so she goes to Jacob and works out this little plan. She says, listen, I want you to receive the blessing because what your dad says will come to pass. So I need you to go get a goat and kill it, and I'm going to make his food, and we're going to make sure you can go in and get that blessing. And Jacob goes, me and my brother are a little different. Esau's built, okay? Like he's pretty strong, rough and tumbly dude, and I'm a little bit more on the meek side. That's what we're going to call him for today. And she goes, listen, just trust my plan. I've got something in store. So she kills the goat. They kill the goat, and she takes the fur and puts it on his hands and on the parts of his skin that are visible, because Esau's main trait is that he was hairy. Wouldn't you love to be known by that in the Bible? Doesn't that sound great? And so she covers him with this goat fur so that when he goes in to see his dad, who can't see very well, he'll feel the hands and go, this is my son Esau. And then she goes to his closet. She goes to Esau's closet and she finds Esau's robe. And she knows, my sons smell different. So she takes Esau's outfit and puts it on Jacob. So now Jacob not only has goat fur, but he also smells like his brother Esau. So Jacob goes in with this meal, feeds his dad, and they have a moment. It says it this way in Genesis 27. It says, Jacob brought it to him, and he ate. And he brought some wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, come here, my son, and kiss me. So he went in and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. You see, he knows he can't see very well, so he feels his son's hands, and he goes, yeah, that's Esau. But just to be sure, he pulls his son in for a kiss, and as he does that, he can smell. And it smells like Esau. So he gives the blessing. But if you remember, blessings can't be retracted, redacted, or changed. It's been spoken into existence, so this is what's going to come to pass. And so he leaves stealing the blessing. Jacob receives the blessing, not because he earned it, not because he deserved it, not even because he was the one that was supposed to get it, but because he was simply in the right place at the right time and he said yes to the blessing. He receives it. Esau comes back, finishes creating this meal and brings it into his dad, and his dad goes, oops, right? Like this is that moment where we realize that something went a little awry, and unfortunately, these words have been spoken, and so they're going to come to pass. And so now we see Esau just shattered. A few verses later, in verse 36, it says, Esau said, isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing. Then he asked, haven't you received any blessing for me? Isaac answered Esau, I have made him lord over you and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son? Esau said to his father, do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father. Then Esau wept aloud. All of us crave receiving a blessing. All of us want to be blessed. All of us want to know that there's a future beyond our present reality and beyond our broken past. All of us crave what Esau craves. And so when we see this, we see him shattered. I wonder how many of us are settling for lesser than blessings, settling for accolades and praise and power and promotion, instead of the blessing that God has for us. And how many of us that leaves us empty and shattered and weeping bitterly, going, is there nothing left that I can go and get? But the reality with blessings is the first step is to receive. You cannot earn. You cannot position yourself in a way that makes you worthy of the blessing. You simply receive. A loving father pulling his son in and smelling and giving him a blessing. But here's the beautiful part. Isaac had one blessing to give. One son he could pass this on to. But that's not true for us. You see, all of us have a loving Father in heaven who sees us and cares about us, and he has an infinite blessing to his Son, Jesus, who he sends to the earth. And when he sends him to the earth, Jesus becomes the blessing. Last week we talked about how when Jesus came to the earth, he took all of our curses and he hung them on a tree, all of our broken, all of our past. He took with himself. Even though he didn't earn or deserve that, we did. And he hung it on a cross and laid to death the things that keep us from experiencing the blessing, keep us from receiving that blessing. And in doing so, he puts his own robe on every single one of us so that when the loving Father pulls us in, he smells Jesus. Every single one of us gets to be called son and daughter of the King. Jesus is the aroma that we get to wear regardless of what we've done because of what Jesus has done. We get to receive, not earn, not deserve, not position. We get to receive. Just like Jacob, I'm gonna say we probably don't deserve it at all. Most of us have been way too cunning in our life, trying to get what we don't actually need. When Jesus said, "Here you go. You're mine." The first thing we have to do, though, is receive that blessing. But it doesn't stop there. It's one thing to hear the words that are spoken to you that you are loved. It's another to own them. So it's time to own it. It's time to own the blessing that God has for you. You see, when Jacob receives the blessing that he did not deserve, that he did not earn, that cannot be redacted, retracted, or changed, he now has to step into a space where he owns it. And he does a pretty good job stepping into the space as the patriarch of a nation. He leads God's people in a pretty powerful way from here on out. But that's true for all of us too. We receive a blessing not because we've earned it, but because Jesus gave it to us freely, became the blessing for us. But now we get to step in and we get to own something. We get to become a part of something. And you might be thinking, okay, what am I owning? What is this blessing that I'm going to receive? What are the words that are promised to me? Well, in the New Testament, we get the writer of Matthew. He takes all of Jesus' sermons and puts them together in something called the Sermon on the Mount. And in there, he starts this entire message with a blessing for us and for all time. It's called the Beatitudes. Some of you may have memorized it as kids. But I just want us to hear the words that we receive and that we own. It says this in Matthew 5. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Did you hear what we receive? Just think about this list. What we receive is yours is the kingdom. You will be comforted. You will inherit. You will be filled. You will be shown mercy. You will see God. You will be called children of God. Yours is the kingdom. That's what we receive. That is spoken over us regardless of what we walked into this room with. That's ours to receive. He's just freely handing that to us. But here's what we get to own. You ready? Suddenly it gets a little bit more difficult. Ours to own is becoming a people that mourns. Ours to own is to become people who are meek, who hunger and thirst for righteousness, who are merciful, who are pure in heart, who are peacemakers, and who are persecuted. You see, we receive the title of children of God who inherit, who will see him. And now we get to step into not to earn God's favor, but because of God's favor, we get to do the hard work now of becoming people who mourn together, who are meek, who pursue pure hearts and minds, who are persecuted. Is that easy? No. but it's worth it. It's valuable. Those words spoken over us invite us into real life, and in that real life, there is abundance. Jesus came so that we may experience life and life to the full. But that means we're going to experience some challenges. That means it's going to be difficult. But these words are written. And once the blessing is written, it cannot be retracted, redacted, or changed. It's ours to own. It's ours to live out as individuals, but also as a group of people together to say, this is the promise we're going to carry out together. And remember, a blessing is a prophetic message that's spoken over your past, in your present, about your future, which means we receive something that covers our mistakes, and now we get to sit in this space where we own it, right here, right now. Those words hold power, and they move us, and they shape us, and they change us. And we get to live that out more beautifully every single day. And I venture to say the way we do that is not by trying harder. It's instead by smelling more and more like Jesus, by sitting with him more and more, by allowing that aroma to encapsulate us, to know Jesus. If you want to know how to own your faith and your promise, get to know Jesus, get to know his heartbeat. That means engaging in scripture. That means engaging in community. That means sitting with him and just talking with him and letting him talk back with you. That means being so surrounded by the aroma of Jesus that you are starting to actually smell like him. So that when the Father pulls you in, he smells Jesus more and more. So is that it? Is that where we leave our life, right? We receive this blessing and then we own it. We become the people that look more and more like Jesus. It doesn't actually stop there. You see, from there, we actually get to share it with people. So we receive it, we step into that, and we own it, and now we share it with other people. We see this with Jacob, right? He receives a blessing he didn't earn, he owns it and steps into a space of being the patriarch, and then he shares it with his family and creates nation out of it. We become people that share it. Have you ever, okay, I'm gonna pick Target. Have you ever been to Target? Yes. If you haven't, that's the most excitement we've had all day. Excellent. I love Target. I'm at Target daily, and I'm not joking, okay? I'm at Target daily because, I mean, why not, right? But one of my favorite things is like walking down an aisle, and you like pass someone, and you go, whoo, and you know they just put way too much perfume on. And now you smell like that woman. And you go home smelling like that woman. And for 3 days, you smell like that woman. You see, that's what the aroma of Jesus is actually supposed to be like. We're supposed to leave a room and people still smell Jesus. We're supposed to leave a space and people still smell Jesus. We're supposed to leave a conversation and people go, man, what is that? Now, for some of us, maybe it's a different experience and it's Axe body spray. Some of us smell more like Axe body spray than perfume, okay? Some of us are leaving a space and people go, ooh, I don't know what that is. That was a bit much. But we're supposed to share the aroma of Jesus with people. We're supposed to share what Jesus freely gave us with other people. Why? Because there are people in your world who are as broken and as shattered as you were and still are. There are people who need that same experience of receiving that blessing, and you get to become the blessing. Just like Jesus became the blessing for us, we get to become the blessing for the people around us, which means when they walk past us, they should go, what is that? I want some of that. And it becomes intoxicating. In fact, in Proverbs, says it this way, in Proverbs 16, going back. Proverbs 16, verse 24, it says, gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. We should smell so much like Jesus that the words that come out of our mouth leave people going, that was sweet. But not just that was sweet, it's healing. Because if you remember, all of us have mailboxes full of words that have been spoken against us that we've been trying to disprove for 24 years. All of us have words that have been spoken over us that have kept us from fully engaging in the life Jesus has for us. And if all of us, as people who have said yes to receiving and owning what Jesus has, if we decided to share those words with other people, we could begin to tackle that mailbox full of words, one word at a time. It creates healing, and it says into our bones, into who we are. We can become people that are like honeycomb, that when they speak to us and they leave our presence, they leave better than they came. Why? Because I smell a little bit more like Jesus every single day. And the words that come out of my mouth leave people wanting more of that experience. We get to share it. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's really good philosophically. Like, that's awesome. Like, I want to smell like Jesus. That's weird. I'm going to just wear perfume. That's not what I'm saying, okay? What I'm getting to here is our words have to match what our hearts are experiencing. And so we have to learn what to and not to say. And so I want to give you something that I learned when I was younger, and it's not something I've created. I like bullying seminars talk about this, but when it comes to the words you're going to speak, you need to stop and think. You need to stop and think. And I don't just mean like put your words through a filter in your mind. I mean think, T-H-I-N-K. Is this true? Is this helpful? Is this inspiring? Is this necessary? Is this kind? Right? Think. Is this true? Is this helpful? Is this inspiring? Is this necessary? Is this kind? Think about the words that you're about to say. And I want to help us kind of understand this a little bit. So when it comes to thinking, there are two different kinds of words that we give to people. We either give compliments or confrontations. Compliments speak life into someone. Confrontations speak death out of someone. Did you guys catch that? Compliments speak life into someone. Confrontations speak life out of someone. And we need both. Some of us are really good at compliments and not so good at the confrontations. Some of us are really good at the confrontations and we forget that there are even compliments in the world. So we need to become people that both speak life into and speak death out of. And so when we're going to do that, we need to think. So for example, if you're going to give a compliment, ask the question, is it true? Am I just blowing smoke, or is this actually true about them? Think American Idol, when it first started coming out. There was always that one person who went and sang, and they're like, who told you you were good? And they're like, my mom. And they're like, they lied to you. That's actually not nice. Only speak compliments that are true, or you're actually doing more harm than good. Are you blowing smoke? Are you trying to get them to like you? Or is it actually true? Is it helpful? Is it helpful for someone to hear that compliment? Because there are times that you're going to compliment people and it's actually just putting more pressure on them than it is in helping them do better. Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Does it make them want to do better every single day? Does that compliment point them towards the promise and the blessing that Jesus has for them? Is it necessary? Does God want me to speak this right now? Or are we okay just living quietly? Maybe they've had too many compliments and this isn't the right time for this. And then finally, is it kind? Or is it backhanded? Around the holidays, some of our compliments that come out end up being a little backhanded. Or some of our compliments actually just reward us instead of helping them out. So think. And then what about confrontations when we're speaking death off of someone? Is it true? Do you know the whole story? Or are you just speaking out of your own experience? Do you need to ask questions before you actually speak? Is this helpful? Are they ready to receive this right now? As you're taking something off of them, saying, hey, this behavior isn't good for you, is it helpful? Or are they already fighting 600 demons and adding one more is actually just going to crush them? Is it inspiring? Is it going to help them stand firm in who Jesus sees them to be? Or is it just going to destroy them? Is it necessary? Does God want you to speak this here, or is there someone else that God's asking to speak? Is it kind? And I think a lot of our confrontations, when done well, can be kind. But are you saying it for your own benefit or for theirs? because sometimes we lose kindness by making it about my comfort. Ugh, I just don't like that you do that thing. Please stop. That's not kind. That's selfish. So think, as you're beginning to become a person who smells more like Jesus, think about the words that you're speaking and how the words that you speak can be like honeycomb that are healing to a person, that can bring life to a person. Words that if we start to reframe how we use them, we begin to understand they cannot be retracted, redacted, or changed. Once they're out, they're going to create a world in someone else. What if we became the kind of people that spoke words that built up, that spoke words that helped people receive and own Jesus? What if what we shared inspired people to build a better world? When I was younger, when I was 25, I was working at a church in Arizona, which is just a lovely place. We're just going to call it a lovely place for today, okay? But while I was there, I was hired to be the student pastor, and it was awesome. And I worked with this gal named Brenda. And Brenda was the children's pastor for a little bit while I was there. And we worked really well together. But part of the reason we worked really well is because she understood what it was to smell of the aroma of Jesus. And she did. Every time we sat down, she could hear my mailbox full of beliefs about myself. She could hear them and she could speak truth into them. She could hear them and speak life into them. And for 5 months, she spent time pouring blessings into my world, confronting behaviors that I had acquired that weren't healthy in order to kind of deal with some of the mess from my younger years. But she also began to speak to my present on what I was capable of right here and right now. And then she began to cast a vision for who I could be. She began to tell me that one day I could speak on stages in front of people. I was like, no. She said, one day you're going to lead in a capacity that you don't understand right now, but trust me, you're going to do it. One day you're going to be someone that speaks life into other people. And she began to paint a picture of who I could be. And I couldn't even fathom that because I was so stuck in the mailbox of my childhood. And she just kept speaking. And these words began to heal me in my bones. And as I received, as I began to own, and as I continued to share, I watched her words every single day breathe life into me. And it took 5 months for her to be one of the most impactful people of my life. She eventually went back to work in her hometown. She's leading a church up there. She's amazing. And in that time, I got to overtake the entire family department. Sounds like a hostile takeover. It wasn't that, I promise, okay? I got to help kind of lead from crib to college. And in that space, I got to hire a children's coordinator. And so I picked this gal named Katie. And Katie is hilarious and fun and bubbly. She knew how to make any environment fun just by being there. The skirts that she wore all had polka dots, okay? Like she was legitimately just one of those people that oozed joy. But as I hired her, I began to realize that she had a mailbox full of words too. You see, she had just gotten out of an abusive marriage. She was trying to fight for custody of her kids. She was trying to figure out a very broken world. And the beliefs that she had in her mind were that I will never be enough. I will never be good. People will never love me unless I'm all of these things, unless I'm overwhelmingly happy all the time. So I, as someone who had received from Brenda, decided to sit next to Katie in the middle of this season of her life, to mourn with her, to grieve, to become merciful. And I got to sit and speak life over her past and say, that's not who you are anymore. In her present, show her what she was capable of, and I got to paint a picture of who she could be one day. And I knew then that she would be able to change entire generations of kids, that she would be someone that could speak life into women who have been abused. And here we are, almost 10 years later, and she's feeding thousands of kids every single day. Here we are, almost 10 years later, and she has a home for battered women to come and find refuge. Why? Because these words that had been defining her no longer needed to, because she could receive the blessing of Jesus, because she could own the promise of who Jesus has made her to be, and because she now gets to share the very message that was shared with me by Brenda. Your words are like honeycomb. They speak life. We have an opportunity, we have an obligation to love people well and to see them and to speak life. We have the promise of words, and those words build worlds, and I want to build those kinds of worlds. The kinds of worlds where people actually believe they can become what Jesus already sees. Your kids need you to speak that world into existence in them. Your spouse needs you to speak that into existence in them. Your neighbor, your classmates, your roommates, your friends, they need you to become someone who can receive the blessing, own that space, and imagine a future that only Jesus can give, and understand that he is promising something better. Can we live in that? In fact, right now we're gonna receive a song. And some of you may know the song, and if you want to worship, if you want to sing, if you want to stand, if you want to kneel, I want you to get comfortable. But what I want for us as a community is to take a moment just to receive the blessing, to receive the words that Jesus has for you and for your children and for their children, to receive a blessing. Some of you, your family systems have been defined by the curses and the sins that have been passed down from generation to generation. Right now is a moment where we get to receive and say, the next generation, we're going to do better. The next generation, we're going to speak life. We're going to create these worlds. And so I want us just to take a moment and receive for ourselves. In fact, if you're in this room and you haven't known Jesus, this is a moment to receive, to let him put his aroma on you and just be held by a loving Father who will smell you and know that you are loved, regardless of what you've done or where you've been. So during this song, receive and know that you are loved. Let me pray for us. God, thank you. Thank you for being a good God, a loving Father who gives in abundance, a loving Father who sees us, sees our pasts, knows our wounds, and yet speaks words of love and life over us. Right now, God, speak what we need to hear from you. Speak a message that brings potential and life back into our own hearts, into our own homes. God, speak so clearly the promises that you have for every single one of us. We love you. We receive what you have to give us.